Hi, do you love fabric panels as much as I do? Do you have lots of them in your stash and you're just not quite sure where to begin? Sometimes the measurement of a panel might put you in a quandary as to how to proceed, or you just don't have any really good ideas, but you love the panel. Well, I am Cyndi McChesney, and I recently published a book called Fun with Panels with C&T Publishing. Inside this book, you will find lots of tips and techniques for how to work with those panels. But first, I'd like to share with you a quick little preview of one of the techniques covered inside these wonderful pages.
In the following video, I'm going to share with you some of the wonderful things that we cover in Fun with Panels. In this segment, I talk about how you can use your panel sections and highlight them within traditional quilt blocks or within quilt designs that have repeated block patterns. In this particular quilt by Tammy Hamill, you will find that the panel sections were simply alternated with a traditional quilt block and set apart with sashing. The effect is beautiful because it gives a lot of motion around the quilt, which causes your eye to visit all the different sections of the panel, and it's a very simple process to complete. Here's a recent quilt that I've done called Circle of Friends, and what I did here was to take panel sections and highlight them within circles of friendship stars. You can see here a close-up, and note that the panel sections were 9 inches when finished, so one of the things we cover in detail in the book is how to graph your traditional quilt block or your setting to a size that will accommodate the panel pieces that you have. I made this quilt for my daughter several years ago. It's called All About the Girl, and the panel had a variety of different size segments. Among those was a series of little 4-inch blocks that I wanted to highlight in some traditional quilt blocks. So first off, I like to try and find a theme that will complement a bit of the panel. And this was a rose, and I found a traditional rose star quilt pattern. I was able to use this 4-inch segment within the block, thereby highlighting it. You'll also notice that I have done traditional quilt blocks such as this variation on an Ohio star that features again a piece of that 4-inch panel, as well as this Western star also featuring some of the 4-inch panel within the traditional quilt block. This Christmas table runner is a lot of fun, and in that panel there were a variety of 2-inch snowflakes. I wanted to use those even though a lot of times we're not quite sure what to do with them, so I highlighted them again in traditional quilt blocks. In the border you can see that sawtooth star, which happens to be one of my favorites for highlighting panel sections, as well as just above Mr. Santa there, another traditional quilt block where I was able to insert those little 2-inch snowflakes, thereby highlighting those within my table runner. This beautiful quilt by Jean Weller uses a 2-colored log cabin block. She highlighted her panel sections within those log cabin blocks, outlined in black, and you can see that by varying the colors in the log cabins, it created a lot of motion around the quilt. And then by alternating with a traditional quilt block, she achieved a really wonderful effect and quite a unique and beautiful quilt. So what we do in this section of the book is we look for traditional quilt blocks where we might find some open space where we could insert a panel section. My favorite block, as I mentioned previously, is the sawtooth star, and you can see circled in red how that great big open space would be beautiful for fitting in a piece of your panel. But you could try other blocks as well. The crown of thorns in the upper right-hand corner offers a section that if you leave out all of the parts within the lime green, you've now created a space for part of a panel. The same goes for the Storm at Sea block below. Again, leaving out a portion of the block, you've got a space where you can highlight something from your panel, perhaps a lighthouse or a sailboat. And this would make a beautiful setting, especially if you repeated that Storm at Sea block and highlighted panel sections within that block. Another one would be the weather vane block, and you have to kind of think outside the box here, and that's what I'm encouraging you to do in the chapter on how to do this within Fun with Panels, where if we leave out everything that I've highlighted in orange, you've got a great big space to feature part of your panel, or perhaps you just want to put something smaller in where that big brown square is in the center. Just keep looking at quilt blocks. Look at the honeybee. Leave out the 9-patch, and you've got a very interesting section where you could feature a fall type panel or something with birds within that space. A lot of times when I'm working on quilts, I do like to highlight my panel pieces within those traditional blocks, and here's one where I have done a row by row quilt, again featuring part of my panel within that sawtooth star. But not just traditional quilt blocks. You might also find that by doing a setting that has repeated patterns, you can create open spaces where you can feature parts of your panel. So with this particular quilt, we have a repeated block, but in between each block there's a great big blue square. Why not fit in panel segments? It makes for a very interesting and much more unique and enjoyable way to feature a panel quilt. And another one would be this particular quilt where you have this wonderful setting and couple of options here. You could use the little white square there in the center, or perhaps that medium blue, eliminate all of that. That should look like a sawtooth star, but this repeated pattern and this repeated setting would make for a very unique panel quilt. So Fun with Panels covers a lot of different kinds of projects, as well as tips and techniques for success. And in particular, as you can see, one of the sections I've shared with you is how to highlight your panel segments within traditional quilt blocks or within traditional quilt settings.
I hope you enjoyed the video and that little preview of one of the many techniques covered in Fun with Panels. My name is Cyndi McChesney, and I am the author of Fun with Panels. Inside these pages, we cover a lot of techniques, from the different types of panels, how to find design inspiration, tips and techniques for squaring up or adding coping strips, tips to size those traditional quilt blocks so that you can fit your panel pieces within the blocks themselves, and so much more. There's a beautiful, colorful gallery at the end of the book showing works from myself and my many students over the years. I hope you'll find something that you can discover new about working with panels and enjoy using this book for years to come. Thanks, and have a great day.